Non-fiscal. That's what they called it. Means not about money. A city employee, city vehicle, driving home in the middle of the workday, spending hours there, years of time-stamped photographs, a witness ready to swear to it under oath, evidence submitted through the city's own whistleblower hotline. The investigators reviewed it and stamped it non-fiscal. Now, about those investigators. They're called Vasquez and Company. They're a CPA firm, accountants, out of Glendale. The city of Oxnard pays them to run the whistleblower program. Every complaint that comes in goes through them first. They're the gatekeepers. And in the entire history of Oxnard's whistleblower program, Vasquez and Company has never once found a single complaint to be valid. Not one. Councilmember Aaron Starr, one of 7 elected members of the Oxnard City Council, sat in a Finance and Governance Committee meeting on January 27th, looked at the whistleblower report on the table in front of him, and pointed to the incident number, the same number the whistleblower had given him personally. He asked one question. How is paying someone who isn't working not about money? Nobody answered him. So the city manager, Alex Nguyen, the highest paid unelected official in Oxnard city government, went and made a video instead. Under a transparency law that Oxnard voters passed specifically so the public could see what the city staff was up to, Nguyen was required to post that video. What he wasn't required to do was use it to call Councilmember Starr someone who jumps to conclusions, makes assumptions, and is disrespectful to city staff. That part was a choice. And here's what Nguyen left out of his video. Los Angeles County once sued Vasquez and Company for fraud, alleging they missed $9 million in embezzlement while accepting a yacht trip, paid for with public money, from the very client they were supposed to be auditing independently. And under California law, has Oxnard been paying a firm that was never legally authorized to investigate employee misconduct in the first place? I looked into it. My name is Eric Andrist, and this is Oxnard Confidential. Alex Nguyen called it non-fiscal. I have another word for it. Stay with me to the end, and I'll tell you what it is. Act 1, the room where it happened. January 27th, 2026, Oxnard City Hall. The Finance and Governance Committee, a small meeting, 3 council members, a handful of staff, and a routine agenda item about updating the city's whistleblower policy. Routine, until Aaron Starr started asking questions.
So here we have an example where, once again, it has to be city related because it was forwarded to the appropriate department for follow-up, but it's theft and it's deemed non-fiscal. And to me, can you give me an example of a theft that isn't fiscal? I mean, all thefts are the taking of value.
Well, we often get reports from residents about other residents.
Okay.
Sometimes they're misdirected. Someone does not know the police non-emergency line or feels more comfortable with the total anonymity of the whistleblower, so it's sort of a misdirected complaint.
Maybe, but Starr already knew what it was because the whistleblower had come to him directly.
But I have intimate knowledge of the second. A city employee who is taking a company vehicle home in the middle of the workday, spending hours at home on a regular basis, and photographs that were time-stamped showing when this employee was at home, and apparently had been storing up photos for several years. I verified that the incident number that on here is the same incident number on this person's report. And apparently still this person is going home in the middle of the workday. So to me, that is a theft. It is fiscal because we're paying somebody and they're not actually doing the job. The individual whistleblower said to me that they would be willing to testify with a sworn declaration.
So what did Vasquez and Company have to say for themselves?
This complaint was actually, we initially classified this as fiscal in nature, but this also an issue that involves employee conduct. That's why we referred it back to the city, to the human resource to identify and gather relevant information, and that if there's a broader patterns or financial implications identified, then we can escalate. However, this report was actually closed because of lack of merit and relevance based on the additional information provided. And I actually saw this report being submitted again in the whistleblower portal just last week.
Fiscal, initially. Then they changed it, reclassified it as non-fiscal, and handed it back to the city. Starr asked who they forwarded it to for follow-up.
So generally what will happen is Andy and I are the two people that generally act as kind of the clearinghouse for these things. Andy and I will meet and we'll determine where they need to go. And yes, we will generally start at the department head level and allow them to do any internal inquiry that they need to do.
The department head, the supervisor of the accused employee. They investigated their own subordinate and found nothing wrong. And the mayor? He read the report, the one written by city staff, and simply accepted it as true, totally missing all the problems that Aaron Starr found. All too often, the council just accepts what the staff says is true, when in fact it is manipulative or wrong.
I don't know if you have the same impression, Councilwoman, or because I'm trying to follow you, Councilmember. When I read this report, I just simply determined that from what the status was, that it didn't involve the city, and there was no fiscal impact. But
the next paragraph says both reports were forwarded to the appropriate departments for follow-up. So
right.
That's why I'm thinking it sounds like it does involve the city.
The case was closed. The city manager promised clarification at next week's council meeting. That clarification never came. What came instead was a video. But before we get to that, we need to talk about how this program actually works. Because once you understand the structure, the outcome stops looking like a coincidence. Act 2. The Gatekeeper. Here's how Oxnard's whistleblower program works on paper. A complaint comes in through a third-party hotline. Vasquez and Company receives it. They triage it. They decide whether it has fiscal significance, whether it involves public money or city resources. If they determine it's fiscal, they're supposed to investigate it themselves. If they determine it isn't fiscal, it goes back to the city. Simple enough, except for one thing. Vasquez and Company is a CPA firm, accountants. Their contract with the city is for internal auditing services. The word investigation never appears in their contract. So here's the problem. A complaint comes in involving a city employee taking a city vehicle home for hours every day. Vasquez initially calls it fiscal. Then they change their minds. They call it an employee conduct issue and hand it back to the city. But either way, they can't do their job. If it's fiscal, they're supposed to audit it. Check the payroll, check the vehicle logs, quantify the loss. They didn't do that. If it's a conduct issue, California law says an outside firm needs a PI license to investigate it. Vasquez doesn't have one. Either way, this complaint was never going to go anywhere. And when I looked at Vasquez and Company's own website, their complete list of services, here's what I found. Tax planning, bookkeeping, financial audits, forensic audits, merger and acquisition services. Whistleblower investigations? Not on the list. Workplace misconduct investigations? Not on the list. So now, follow this logic. A complaint comes in. Vasquez decides it's fiscal. If it's fiscal, they're required to investigate it. But if they're not licensed, it goes back to the city, the same organization the complaint is about. And the city decides for itself whether there was any wrongdoing. Judge and jury all in one. I'm not going to tell you what that adds up to. I'm going to let you do the math. But I will tell you this has been seen before. In 2017, Los Angeles County sued Vasquez and Company for fraud and negligent misrepresentation. The lawsuit alleged that Vasquez was auditing a nonprofit called the Chicana Service Action Center, an organization that received millions in public funds to serve homeless people, domestic violence victims, and the unemployed. While Vasquez was providing supposed independent oversight, 3 executives of that nonprofit were charged with 61 counts of embezzlement, $9 million in public money, gone, into luxury cars, season tickets, a personal residence in San Marino. And what was Vasquez doing while all this was happening? According to the court records, Vasquez's own managing partner accepted a yacht trip, a full week Seattle to Vancouver, paid for with public money by the very client he was supposed to be auditing independently. The checks totaled $35,000. But here's the part that should sound familiar. According to LA County's lawsuit, when Vasquez's auditors found serious problems, they didn't put them in official reports that went to the county. They moved them into private management letters that only the client ever saw. Court records show that there was even an internal form signed off by management, including the managing partner himself, documenting the decision to keep those findings out of the official reports and confine them to the management letter. A staff auditor disagreed. Management overruled her. The county never knew. The funding kept flowing. The fraud kept going. Los Angeles County called that arrangement collusive. That's their word, in a court filing. The LA County Board of Supervisors voted to terminate their contract with Vasquez as a result. Oxnard kept paying them. Now, in the LA County case, the bad news was moved into management letters, documents only the client saw. In Oxnard, complaints that could require investigation get reclassified and routed back to the city, where they're handled internally and closed. Different mechanism, same destination. Away from the people who were supposed to see them. And it wasn't just Los Angeles County. In 2022, a state fraud investigation into the Bassett Unified School District found that Vasquez and Company refused to turn over their work papers to state investigators. The successor auditor found nearly $500,000 in deficiencies from Vasquez's prior audit work. State investigators said their conduct should be of concern to the California Board of Accountancy, the state controller, and the Los Angeles County Office of Education. 3 documented government actions against Vasquez and Company. Los Angeles County sued them for fraud. Bassett Unified state investigators raised serious questions about their audit quality, and the City of Riverside terminated them while Alex Nguyen was still working there. So the question worth asking is, how does Oxnard not know about any of this, and why is Vasquez and Company still working for them? We asked earlier whether Vasquez and Company was ever legally authorized to conduct these investigations. If the answer is no, every finding they've ever produced for Oxnard may be legally invalid, including the one Alex Nguyen used to make his video. Act 3. The video. After the January 27th committee meeting, City Manager Alex Nguyen made a Measure M video. That's standard procedure. What wasn't standard was what he put in it.
Everyone has their right to come here to speak. You can express your opinion. You can make your allegations. You can raise your questions. Anything you want. But here in between, for all the executive staff, and I actually include our city clerk in this, we are held accountable for what we say. And from that perspective, words matter even more to us. So when things are stated that are wrong, that are incorrect, that are misinformation, disinformation, or bashing staff, I will, as the head of this organization, speak up and clarify the record.
Oftentimes that includes his own brand of disinformation. But wait a minute, what was that he said?
As the head of this organization, as the head of this organization.
He may be the CEO, but he still answers to the city council, who represent the people of Oxnard. Notice what he didn't say. He didn't say he'd offer additional context. He didn't say he'd respond to the questions raised. He said he would correct them, as if the matter is settled the moment he speaks. No appeal, no rebuttal. His word is final. A city manager responding to questions? That's his job. A city manager using his platform to spread his own brand of disinformation while silencing the people asking them? That's not administration. That's intimidation. And when he does it anyway, publicly, on camera, using a voter-created transparency tool, he's not just overstepping, he's grandstanding and sending a message to every employee, every council member, every resident who might be thinking about blowing the whistle. Don't do it. Now, about that video. You know, the one where he clarifies the disinformation? Measure M is a transparency law that Oxnard voters passed in 2020 with 57% of the vote, over the objection of the entire city council. It requires city staff to post presentations in advance so the public can see what's coming. It was designed to prevent staff from blindsiding residents at meetings, which is exactly what Nguyen ended up doing. He used it to blindside a council member instead, specifically the very council member who wrote it, Aaron Starr. In the video, he replayed Aaron Starr's words from the January 27th meeting. Then he put up title cards with his own editorial commentary. He called the complaint without merit. He said the employee works in the field and sometimes stops home for lunch. He said, and I want you to hear this word, that Starr was being disrespectful to city staff. Disrespectful for asking how a theft complaint got labeled non-fiscal. Here's what Nguyen did not put in that video. That his own office runs the whistleblower program. That his own office pays Vasquez and Company. That Vasquez reclassified the complaint so it would go back to the city for handling. That his office handed it to the accused employee's own supervisor. That the supervisor found no merit. That Vasquez and Company has never found a single complaint valid in the history of this program in Oxnard. That LA County sued Vasquez and Company for fraud. That there are serious legal questions about whether Vasquez was ever licensed to do this work at all. None of that made it into his video. Nguyen ended up using Starr's very own Measure M to attack him for calling attention to a potential scandal Nguyen didn't want exposed. So here we are. A whistleblower brought evidence, time-stamped, documented, a witness ready to testify. The complaint went to a firm that may not be legally authorized to investigate anything in California and doesn't list misconduct investigation as a service on its own website. That firm initially called it fiscal, then reclassified it, then handed it to the city. The city gave it to the accused employee's own supervisor. The supervisor found nothing wrong. The case was closed. When a council member asked how that was possible, the city manager made a video calling him disrespectful. And the firm that cleared the employee, the one with 0 valid complaints in its entire history with this city, the one LA County sued for fraud and described as collusive, still on contract, still collecting city money, still serving as the gatekeeper for every whistleblower complaint that comes in, still deciding. Here's what we also know. In September 2017, the City of Riverside terminated Vasquez and Company. Their own assistant city manager sent a letter to Vasquez saying, and I'm quoting, that the LA County fraud allegations presented a, quote, potentially significant issue, close quote, given the type of work Vasquez has been hired to do. Vasquez was terminated. Alex Nguyen was assistant city manager of Riverside at that time. He was in that building. 3 years later, he's city manager of Oxnard, and Vasquez and Company is on contract. I'll let you decide what that means. Alex Nguyen called it non-fiscal. I've been doing this long enough to have another word for it, but I'm going to let you decide what to call it. Because here's what we know. The investigator his office hired has never found a single complaint valid. His office made the video, and when a council member asked a question that deserved an answer, his office called it disrespectful. In my experience, there's only one reason a man works that hard to make sure nobody looks too closely. You know what that reason is. Alex Nguyen's office said the case was closed. Well, we're reopening it. And I'm asking everyone watching, because one day you might need that whistleblower hotline to actually work. Help me make sure it does. This is Oxnard Confidential. I'm Eric Andrist, and in this city, the file is never really closed.